Okay, let's dive into this wild manhwa storyline. Our protagonist, Jong-ha, wakes up in a reality that literally shatters everything he knows about gender roles. Imagine coming home after a grueling day at work, the moon randomly turns red, you pass out, and boom, you wake up in the body of a pretty high school boy with all your memories intact. But it's not just your body that's changed. The entire world order completely flipped on its head. In this explainer, we're going to break down one of the most unique twists on the isekai genre you will ever see.
So picture this. You wake up as a submissive pretty boy in a reversed universe where women are the physically dominant alphas. In this new reality, history itself is swapped. Empires were built by women. Women are biologically stronger, taller, and way more aggressive. And men? Well, they're expected to stay home, perfect their skincare routines, wear makeup, and wait to be rescued. Jang-ha's own dad is constantly nagging him to dress cuter and learn makeup tips from his friends. It is a complete 180-degree turn from the patriarchal society he just left behind.
The real inciting incident hits when the mysterious goddess of the Red Moon shows up. She's the entity who dragged him here, and she drops a brutal, high-stakes ultimatum on him. Basically, she tells him to embrace the ultimate alpha male grind set to escape, or slowly assimilate into a submissive native of this world. Like, if he can become a real man and flip the script in this matriarchy, he might just earn a ticket home. But if he fails, his mind and body will permanently conform to the new world's standards. No pressure, right?
To survive, Jang-ha comes up with a strict three-step plan to level up physically and mentally. He completely refuses to be a victim in a society where guys are literally getting harassed in the school hallways. Step 1. Diet and exercise. While all the other boys are nibbling on tiny salads to stay slim, he starts inhaling massive portions of protein and joins a Muay Thai club. Step 2. A total makeover. He gets a short, masculine haircut and instantly ditches the frilly clothes. And step 3, he realizes that to really fuel his independence, he's going to need cash.
And he secures that financial independence fast by perfectly exploiting this new world using his old world knowledge. First, he writes a massive hit web novel with the hilarious title, A Real Woman in a Patriarchal World. Then, he starts streaming online games. He absolutely dominates at League of Legends, locking in characters like Yasuo, and completely shocks the top female pro players of this world who literally cannot believe a boy is thrashing them. He even starts doing masked fitness workouts from his bedroom and instantly becomes a viral internet celebrity.
Surviving the alpha females.
But here's the catch. As he starts flexing this newfound confidence and raking in that internet fame, he accidentally paints a massive target on his back, attracting the city's most powerful, aggressive women. In a world where men are supposed to be timid, Jang-ha's defiant attitude makes him a total magnet for danger. What looks like a standard harem is actually a terrifying gauntlet of high-level boss battles. We're talking Lu Jackson, a pink-haired street gang boss, Wei Nan, a towering, ruthless corporate CEO with military ties, Yua, a socially awkward but heavily armed military heiress, and King Qin, his dangerously attached stepsister. Every single one of them has immense resources and a totally unhinged obsession with him.
His first real challenge is the yandere mob boss, Liu Xin. She actually corners him in an alley with a knife, demanding he become her boyfriend. But rather than waiting for a strong woman to swoop in and save him, he brilliantly outsmarts and physically dominates her himself. He uses his Muay Thai to dodge her attacks, blasts her with pepper spray, snatches the knife, and then drops the mic by revealing he's been recording her threats the entire time. He totally neutralizes a mob boss with pure old-world pragmatism.
But the stakes escalate massively with Wei Nan, the domineering CEO of the Fang Hong Group. This woman is so intense that she actually has one of her adult subordinates dress up like a little girl to drug Jang-ha with candy smoke and kidnap him. Yeah, you heard that right. He wakes up tied to a bed in a room completely covered in mirrors. This leads to an incredibly tense psychological standoff where she actually deduces he's from another world, simply because his personality shifted way too drastically from the original boy.
And here's where Jang-ha firmly sets his boundaries. Wei Nan offers him literally everything: fame, fortune. She even promises to take him to space with her company's rockets, but he refuses to be controlled by her wealth, delivering an incredibly cold rejection. And the irony? In a world where men constantly seek protection, his flat-out refusal just makes Wei Nan fall for him even harder because she absolutely despises weakness.
Then there's Yua. She's a shy but insanely wealthy military heiress who forms this fierce, protective bond with him. To give you an idea of her vibe, when she first brings him to her luxurious mansion, she tries to give him her favorite gun as a token of friendship, just casually handing out firearms. She actually joins him in combat training, showing off these crazy impressive abs, and violently threatens anyone who crosses him, even going toe-to-toe with Waynan's people. She is completely unpredictable, deeply loyal, and wildly dangerous.
Meanwhile, things are hitting a boiling point at home with his overly attached stepsister, King Kin. Her borderline yandere behavior is constantly clashing with the other powerful women circling him. She is fiercely protective, deeply jealous, and actively plotting to keep him all to herself, literally referring to him as her little toy behind his back. She even physically fights the CEO, Wayne, just to keep her away. It just proves that for Jang Ha, there is absolutely no safe haven, not even in his own house.
The original Soul Awakens. Just as he's starting to balance these rival factions, we get hit with a massive plot twist that flips this from an action comedy right into a psychological thriller. It turns out, Jang Ha isn't the only one living inside his head. The original Jang Ha's soul is still alive inside the body. Our guy starts getting these severe memory leaks, splitting headaches, and finds himself in a desperate battle for internal control. He sees visions of the original boy's childhood, a gentle, submissive kid who promised to protect his sister Kin forever. So now our tough Earth guy is fighting a metaphysical war against a soul deeply tied to the exact people he's trying to avoid.
And why is this happening? The goddess of the Red Moon pops back up to reveal her sick, metaphysical game. She is intentionally forcing the two souls to merge entirely for her own twisted amusement. She warns them that if they stay in the same body too long, they'll destroy each other's sanity, meaning our protagonist could be erased completely. To her, human souls are literally just toys to be played with and tossed out when they break.
The narrative then totally fractures into these chaotic timeline leaps. We experience the original Jang Ha's childhood trauma, his deep devotion to his stepsister, and watch as those intense emotions start bleeding directly into our protagonist. This sets up a terrifying ticking clock for a final showdown with the goddess. Our guy knows that if he fights the original soul for dominance, one of them dies and the goddess wins her sick little game.
But instead of fighting for dominance, he makes the ultimate Chad move. He flat out refuses to erase the original Jang Ha. He validates the boy's existence, recognizes his profound love for Kin, and just completely defies the goddess's rules. He looks a literal deity in the eye and says that sacrificing another soul to survive is murder, and he is not playing her game anymore.
Confronting the Red Moon.
Through sheer willpower, he forces an unprecedented metastatic stalemate. He basically calls the goddess's bluff, choosing compassion for the original soul over his own guaranteed survival. And because of his absolute refusal to merge on her terms, the goddess's power is neutralized. She's left completely powerless for exactly 7 years until the next Red Moon cycle. He literally breaks the mechanics of her game, buying himself and the original soul a massive chunk of time.
With the supernatural threat on pause, Jing Ha wakes up in a hospital bed. And guess who's surrounding him? Wei Nan, Kin, and Yua. Realizing they almost lost him to a literal god, these three incredibly dangerous women form a highly volatile, heavily armed truce to protect him. They figure out that fighting each other is totally pointless if the goddess can just snap him out of existence. So they begrudgingly join forces.
Fast forward a bit, and we see this chaotic, hilarious new family dynamic. The matriarchs are literally bickering over new baby, arguing about whether the kid resembles Wei or Yue more. Meanwhile, Jang Ha is calmly packing his bags to leave for a mysterious 1-month journey, fully trusting this bizarre, heavily armed found family to hold down the fort while he's gone.
Which leaves us with a final, fascinating question about surviving a flipped reality. Did our hero actually successfully rewrite the rules of this world, proving that a man can be independent and strong? Or, in his absolute grind to become an alpha, did he just accidentally build the world's most dangerous harem, surrounding himself with the exact monsters he was trying to run from? Either way, he survived the matriarchy on his own terms. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the rules of the world around you.
Imagine this. You're a stressed-out office worker, totally exhausted from the daily grind. You close your eyes, just wanting a good night's sleep, and suddenly, you wake up as an insanely attractive pretty boy in a universe that operates under completely different rules. Today we're diving straight into the wild, mind-bending journey of Jang Ha. This explainer is going to break down exactly how one guy navigated a world that literally flipped everything he knew upside down. So just think about that premise for a second. What if you woke up in a reality where every single gender stereotype was completely reversed? In this alternate universe, women are biologically stronger, taller, incredibly direct, and unapologetically aggressive. Meanwhile, men? They're biologically weaker, highly submissive, passive, and society absolutely expects them to wear makeup, go on strict diets, and basically sit around waiting for women to make the first move. Everything from historical empires to modern crime statistics has just been entirely swapped. The culture shock here is just hilarious. Let's compare his two lives. Back in his old world, Jang Ha was a total straight shooter. You know, he'd finish a brutal day at work, grab some beers with his bros, and live a super standard, low-maintenance life. But in this reverse world, he literally wakes up to his dad banging on his bedroom door, nagging him about his dry skin, telling him he desperately needs makeup lessons from his best friend, and completely scolding him for forgetting to set up his shopping dates. I mean, it is a total 180-degree turn from everything he knows. Okay, so how did he actually get here? Enter the inciting incident. Jang Ha gets visited in his sleep by the goddess of the red moon. She's the cosmic entity who tossed him into this bizarre reality in the first place. She essentially calls him out for all his past life complaints and drops a massive ultimatum on him. The rule is simple. Flip the script. Prove you can be a real man who takes the initiative in this hyper-matriarchal world. If he succeeds, he might actually find his way back to Earth. But if he fails, he's going to slowly, unintentionally assimilate into this world, forever trapped as a delicate, submissive femboy. Faced with that absolutely terrifying ultimatum, Jang Ha straight up refuses to submit. He creates what we can basically call his Chad checklist. Step 1, build physical strength. So he actively seeks out Muay Thai training. Step 2, ruin the whole pretty boy aesthetic. He marches into a salon and demands they chop all his hair off. But hilariously, this just makes him look even cuter to the women of this world. Step 3, the diet. There's this brilliant scene in the school cafeteria where all the other guys are picking at these tiny salads to keep their figures slim, and Jang Ha, he loudly orders massive plates of pork, a ribeye steak, and huge bowls of rice, just openly rebelling against society's beauty standards. But here's the crazy part. His rebellion actually backfires into massive success. The timeline of this is insane. He decides to stream some gaming just to make some quick cash, right? Day 1, he jumps into League of Legends on a beginner account and completely wrecks a professional female esports player on stream using Yasuo. Day 2, he's just minding his own business, eating a burger, and some random girl secretly photographs him at McDonald's. By day 3, that sneaky photo has him trending in the top 5 on national social media as a peerless beauty. And by day 4, between his gaming skills and his viral face reveal, he lands an offer for an 8-figure streaming contract. His life is spiraling completely out of control. Of course, getting viral fame in a world full of highly aggressive women is going to attract some incredibly dangerous suitors. Enter antagonist number 1, Lu Xin. She is a pink-haired, ruthless street gang leader who actually corners him in a dark alley. But Jang Ha does not back down. When she threatens him with a knife, he handles it head-on. He blasts her straight in the face with pepper spray, pulls out a voice pen to reveal he's been recording the whole thing, and threatens to hand the audio straight to the cops. And instead of getting angry, Lu Xin is totally mesmerized by his defiance. Then we have our second major suitor, CEO Weinan. She runs a massive media conglomerate and absolutely does not take no for an answer. When Jung Ha refuses to sign a contract with her agency, this towering ex-military executive literally kidnaps him and ties into a bed in a room surrounded by mirrors. It's wild. But once again, Jung Ha refuses to play the victim. He fights back, verbally tears into her, and aggressively resists her dominance. And just like the gang leader, Weinan becomes completely obsessed with this tiny, defiant guy who refuses to bow to her power. But the threats aren't just coming from his enemies. They're coming from his closest allies, too. He's got 2 fiercely overprotective suitors right in his inner circle. First is Yua, this incredibly wealthy, quiet classmate who casually gifts him actual firearms as tokens of her affection. Yeah, real guns. Then there's his stepsister, Kinkin. She is constantly crossing boundaries at home, constantly trying to assert this dominant romantic presence in his life. It leaves Jang Ha basically having to fight off relentless advances right in his own living room. Now, right when you think this is just some wild romantic comedy, the story completely shifts gears into a full-blown thriller. CEO Weinan sits Jang Ha down and reveals a really dark secret. She actually shows him these fatal, impossible-to-survive wounds on her abdomen from her military days, wounds that were miraculously healed by the glow of the red moon. For Zhang He, this is a massive wake-up call. It confirms that the red moon isn't just some magical teleportation device. It's a cosmic anomaly with dark, supernatural rules that manipulate souls and alter reality itself. And this revelation pulls us straight into the climax. The goddess of the red moon basically decides she has had enough of Zhang He's resistance. So she starts mentally torturing him by violently throwing his soul across alternate future timelines. It's a total mind trip. In one timeline, he wakes up suddenly married to an older police officer version of Yua. He blinks, and suddenly he's in a completely different timeline, married to CEO Wei Nan at a surprise birthday party. The goddess is literally trying to break his mind by forcing him to experience these sudden, unexplained fates before finally chucking him all the way back into the past. It's in this past timeline where he wakes up as a primary school student that we get this massive emotional plot twist. Zhang He finally understands why his stepsister Kin is so obsessive. It turns out she went through some severe childhood trauma. When our parents divorced, she was completely abandoned. The original soul of Zhang He was literally the only person who stepped in and saved her from total isolation. Her devotion is actually super tragic. She secretly orchestrated her own mother's marriage to his father just so she could become his stepsister and protect him forever. So how on earth does our protagonist beat a cosmic goddess who's treating timelines like playthings? With a completely wild anime-style climax, of course. Realizing that they both share this intense, burning desire to protect Kin's happiness, the soul of the original Zhang He suddenly appears right alongside our protagonist. To break the goddess's rules, the two Zhang He's perfectly coordinate their movements. Raise your left arm, now your right foot. They perform a literal Dragon Ball-style fusion dance. By merging their souls together through their shared love and their absolute need to protect their family, they shatter the goddess's magical hold on them. And the goddess? She is just left totally baffled and defeated by this insane loophole. Fast forward 2 years, and we get the ultimate Chad resolution. Zhang He is living peacefully on a remote, incredibly beautiful island. He's not running away anymore. He's living there with Yua, Wei Nan, and Kin, fully accepting responsibility for his choices. He didn't just survive the reverse world, he took complete control of his destiny. He truly became the protagonist of his own life. So the real takeaway from this entire explainer is that true strength isn't just about physical power. It's about the total refusal to surrender your identity, no matter what crazy universe you find yourself in. I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on today. If you woke up tomorrow, trapped in the reverse world, with the red moon hanging ominously in the sky, would you spend all your energy just trying to escape back home, or would you rise up and try to conquer it? Thanks for hanging out and exploring this incredible story with me. Keep questioning things, and I'll catch you in the next explainer. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into an absolutely wild, fast-paced manhwa. It's a story where survival means navigating a world of completely reversed roles, and we follow one guy's epic, ultimate quest to reclaim his masculinity. So picture this for a second. What would you do if you woke up in a world where men are physically weak, women rule absolutely everything, and you literally have to prove your masculinity just to survive? Because that is the exact bizarre reality our protagonist, just an average guy named Zhang He, suddenly faces. One minute, he's heading home minding his own business, and the next, a mysterious red moon flashes, and he wakes up trapped inside the delicate, fragile body of a high school boy. In this new reality, the script is completely flipped. I mean, a total 180. In this new world, women are the aggressive, biologically dominant ones who rule the corporate empires. And the men, well, they're physically submissive, they obsess over skincare, and they just wait around to be pursued. Zhang He goes from being this normal, confident guy to a weak kid who can't even unscrew a water bottle without some girl swooping in to do it for him. And then, boom, enter the goddess of the red moon, this sinister entity who orchestrated this whole thing. She drops an absolute ultimatum on him. If you become a real man in this feminist world, you might find your way back. If not, you will assimilate. The stakes are pretty clear right from the jump. He either becomes a true Chad in this matriarchal nightmare, or he loses his original identity forever. Obviously, Zhang He is not having any of it. Refusing to wear a single drop of makeup or yield to these new rules, he cooks up the ultimate alpha male master plan. Step 1, start exercising and learning martial arts to fix this new body's terrible stamina. Step 2, reject all the cute, frilly clothes everyone expects him to wear, opting for a short haircut and dominant styling instead. And step 3, he decides to become a masked gamer and fitness streamer to totally dominate the female pro players online. And you know what? The plan works flawlessly. By just flexing his old world gaming skills and doing some masked workouts, he goes incredibly viral. We're talking pulling in a massive 38,000 yuan in a single broadcast. He's basically speed-running financial independence in a world where guys usually rely 100% on wealthy women to provide for them. But, as you can probably guess, that rapid rise to fame puts a massive target on his back. He suddenly attracts this crazy roster of terrifyingly aggressive female suitors who are just obsessed with his defiant attitude. You've got his fiercely protective, maybe slightly unhinged stepsister, Kin. Then there's Liu Xin, an actual pink-haired mob boss who pulls knives when she gets rejected. Throw in Wei Nan, a towering, ruthless CEO, and Yua, this ultra-rich fighter. Every single one of them is a unique, deadly threat to his freedom. Things escalate real quick, like kidnapping quick. CEO Wei Nan decides she isn't taking no for an answer, so she literally orchestrates a plot to snatch him up. She drags him to this private mirror-filled room and drops a total bombshell. She's been studying his streams, mapping out his combat skills, and she's actually deduced the impossible, that a new, foreign soul has taken over this boy's body. She is smart, she is dangerous, and she wants him entirely under her control. Now, while he's trying to fend off these intense suitors, Zhang Ha is battling a much scarier internal ticking clock, assimilation. Basically, it's the process where a foreign soul permanently merges with a new host world, completely erasing all of its original memories, thoughts, and behaviors. When his body starts instinctually reacting to things it shouldn't, he realizes with horror that the goddess wasn't just making an empty threat. His brain is actively being rewritten. To totally shatter whatever mental resolve he has left, the goddess unleashes her trump card, a chaotic multiverse trial. She plunges him into these crazy alternate realities, forcing him to rapidly jump between timelines. In one, he's trapped with Wei Nan. In another, Yua is this hardcore, seasoned police officer. And finally, she forces a devastating jump, all the way back to his childhood with his stepsister, Kin. Okay, get ready for this, because this is where the story completely pulls the rug out from under you. The original soul? He is still alive. Yeah, the weak, timid boy that Zhang Ha originally possessed didn't just fade away into nothingness. He has been fully conscious this entire time, trapped silently inside his own body, just watching helplessly as our protagonist hijacked his life, his family, and his friends. And that revelation absolutely shatters the timeline. When Kin finally realizes that the original sweet Zhang Ha she grew up with is gone, she completely breaks down, crying out, "Since you disappeared from this life, everything is pointless." She attempts the unthinkable right in front of him. The goddess literally backs our hero into the most impossible, tragic corner imaginable. Which brings us right into the ultimate soul fusion. So, with Kin's life hanging in the balance and the goddess pushing him to the absolute brink, our protagonist realizes there is only one way out of this nightmare. In a move straight out of anime, the two souls hatch a literal Dragon Ball-style synchronization plan. They make a pact to protect Kin above all else, perfectly match their physical movements, declare their shared devotion, and forcibly merge their distinct minds and memories into one single entity. And it actually works. Leaving the goddess completely speechless, the newly unified Zhang Ha steps up and declares, "I am not just one Zhang Ha, but both. No matter what happens, I will always be there for you." By combining the old world guy's sheer willpower with the original boy's pure emotional devotion, he absolutely shatters the goddess's trial for good. So fast forward 2 years later, all those chaotic battles for his affection, they finally settled down on a lush, private island. The new, unified Zhang Ha is living peacefully, spending his days physically training right alongside his former terrifying pursuers, Wei Nan, Yua, all of them. They went from deadly threats to his most respected allies. So, did he actually fulfill the goddess's task? Well, it turns out, being a true man in this wild matriarchal world wasn't about dominating women or completely rejecting their society at all. It was actually about being someone who knows exactly what they want in life, pursues it relentlessly, and always takes absolute responsibility for their choices. He stopped running, and he finally embraced his life. And that is really the core takeaway of this whole epic journey. In a world completely overflowing with chaotic expectations and reversed roles, what choices will you make? Will you take control and become the true protagonist of your own life? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.
Let's jump right into the explosive, chronological journey of Suchan through the solar apocalypse. If you love intense tactical survival stories and, just insanely overpowered protagonists, you're going to be absolutely hooked by how we break down the mechanics and ruthless mindsets of this world in today's explainer.
Seriously, what would you do if you woke up exactly 1 month before the world literally burned to ash? Because our protagonist, Suchan, actually gets to answer that. In his first run at the apocalypse, he dies a pretty pathetic, miserable death after surviving for 5 agonizing years. He's betrayed and abandoned the very moment his supplies are on dry. But then, we get this ultimate plot twist. He wakes up exactly 30 days before the nightmare begins. He's got a second chance, and this time, he knows exactly what's coming.
And because of that, we see this complete psychological shift. I mean, in his past life, he was a desperate survivor, starved and ultimately betrayed and murdered by his own girlfriend, Shakan, for mere scraps. But with this second chance, Suchan transforms into a cold, calculating anti-hero who is out for pure revenge. He isn't just trying to scrape by this time, he wants to completely dominate the New World Order. The sheer trauma of his past death has stripped away all his naivete. Now, he is just a totally ruthless tactician.
And obviously, to dominate, you need resources. 3 billion, to be exact. That is the sheer, ridiculous scale of his prep work. Suchan awakens an overpowered spatial dimension ability early on, which effectively gives him a massive, time-frozen warehouse, and he uses it to hoard 3 billion in resources. We're talking draining entire lakes of fresh water, stockpiling 2,000 tons of smokeless charcoal, securing massive blocks of ice, and ordering millions in gourmet banquets. He even brutally scams local loan sharks to fund the whole operation, knowing full well that money is just going to be useless paper in a month.
Because the clock is ticking and the environmental stakes here are absolutely terrifying. Day 1 starts with a scorching red moon that pushes surface temperatures over 100 degrees Celsius, literally baking everything alive. Then by week 1, the melting poles trigger massive global tsunamis and rising floods that just swallow entire cities whole. And looking to the future, a devastating glacial period. This rapid apocalyptic escalation of disasters completely dictates Suchan's ruthless survival strategy. He makes absolutely sure he is always one step ahead of the climate.
So let's get into Section 1, the Scorching Red Moon and Awakening.
The apocalypse pretty much kicks the door down. As the moon emits this burning red aura and asphalt literally melts people in the streets, civilization just collapses overnight. And amidst this absolute horror, Suchan drops this iconic quote, "In times of chaos, you're still dreaming of restoring order." This brilliantly sums up his mindset during the Green City hotel scene. While everyone else is burning alive outside or panicking in the lobby as the power grids explode, Suchan is brutally neutralizing his enemies, including those loan sharks who came to collect, all while chilling in an air-conditioned presidential suite eating fried chicken. He establishes his absolute dominance from hour 1.
Now, as the deadly heat wave creates drought demons, which are essentially blazing fire zombies, we get introduced to the core magic system of this world. A mutation crystal is a rare core extracted directly from the heads of these newly evolved monsters. Suchan actually steals the very first core right out from under a local gang boss named Gao. By consuming this crystal, Suchan triggers his first physical evolution. This permanently enhances his biology so he can actually withstand the extreme lethal environment.
And man, Suchan becomes overpowered terrifyingly fast. Armed with a 3-meter spatial jump, his time-frozen dimensional storage, and a newly awakened berserker mode that grants him extreme strength and heat resistance, he's virtually unstoppable. And he uses these exact abilities to exact some gruesome revenge. When his treacherous ex-girlfriend Shokin mutates into a demon and attacks him, he effortlessly dismantles her. He tears her apart limb by regenerating limb as a brutal testament that he has entirely shed his past weakness.
Moving right along to Section 2, Clash with the Rat King. Just as his timeline predicted, the unbearable heat rapidly shifts into devastating global floods, plunging the ruined cities completely underwater. So, to adapt to this submerged world, Suchan hunts down a massive mutant golden king cobra. Claiming its core unlocks aquatic breathing for him. After this brutal cinematic fight where he literally rips the giant, highly intelligent snake in half, he can now breathe oxygen directly through his skin underwater. This crucial upgrade lets him navigate the newly flooded city and sets up his journey to a vital location, which is the Science University.
When he arrives, he finds out the science university is ruled by a mad scientist named Liu Hian and his terrifying mutant ratman army. Su Chen infiltrates the university grounds, reunites with his old friend Chen Yu, and faces off against some truly bizarre enemies. Like Captain Guo, a mutated sumo wrestler who uses his fat cells as impenetrable armor and rolls around like a literal sonic ball. Su-chan, keeping his signature cool, casually destroys him by shoving an explosive battery straight into his mouth. And this brilliantly illustrates the horrific reality of the university experiments involving the apocalypse gene. See, Liu Hian has developed a massive god complex and is actively trading human refugees as lab rats. He uses this unstable biological mutation to forcibly evolve innocent people into loyal, aggressive rat hybrids. He's building his own personal army, basically trading their entire lifespans for raw, monstrous brute strength.
Suchin calls him out perfectly on this, saying, "You're just turning people into monsters, nothing more." And this leads to an incredibly intense, multi-stage boss battle. Liu Hian injects himself, warping into this monstrous jackal beast. During the absolute chaos of the fight, Su Chen rescues a giant building-sized mutated girl named Union, and then he just utterly physically obliterates Liu Hian. Even when the dying scientist tries to pull a fast one and take over Su Chen's consciousness through the rat swarm's collective mind, Su Chen's massive mental fortitude completely crushes him. It secures the victory in spectacular fashion.
So let's tally up his growing arsenal here. By claiming the Rat King's crystal from the mad scientist, Su Chen adds ice crystal manipulation and mind control over mutated rats to his spatial jumps, time-frozen storage, berserker mode, and aquatic breathing. Just look at this loadout. It proves without a doubt that he is rapidly becoming the apex predator of this new, ruined world, scaling his powers way faster than anyone else alive.
Okay, into Section 3, War Against the Devourers.
So Chan takes his newly rescued medical staff, which includes the brilliant Dr. Dua, and attempts to establish a safe base at the Roshing safe zone. But as we know, leadership matters immensely in the apocalypse. On one side, we have the current leader, the corrupt Lord Zhang. Turns out, he's making a sickening deal, secretly selling his own refugees to a tribe of cannibalistic monsters called Devourers in exchange for food. On the other side, we have So-chan, who reveals he's hoarding a 2,000-person food supply in his dimension and wants to build a legitimate, fair safe zone.
We can map out Su-chan's tactical base takeover in 3 precise steps. First, he uncovers Lord Zhang's secret cannibal deal using a corrupt guard as bait. Second, he absolutely annihilates the Devourer tribe in a single blood-soaked night, bringing their leader's severed body back as proof. Third, he empowers the Honorable General Gao to lead the refugees away from the corrupt city. This overthrow culminates in the most satisfying way possible. Su-chan ends Lord Zhang's spoiled, murderous son by shoving a literal grenade into his mouth. Classic, ruthless Su-chan.
With the base finally secured and under honorable leadership, Su-chan pivots to his next massive tactical advantage. He turns his sights on a submerged military arsenal. He leads an intense underwater raid alongside a special forces sniper named Ba Kang. Together, they navigate through swarms of terrifying aquatic ghouls to secure heavy weaponry, recon drones, and critical ammunition. And this sets up the final chaotic sequence of this explainer.
Which brings us to Section 4, the ultimate cliffhanger.
Because our overpowered protagonist is about to face an unpredictable threat from all sides. Out of nowhere, terrifying plant monsters ambush the team right at their hospital base. Thorny tentacles shoot out, grabbing the giant Union and completely immobilizing her. It's a brutal, high-stakes reminder that it's not just animals and humans changing, nature itself is mutating far faster than humanity can adapt. It creates this constant threat where even the ground beneath them is an enemy.
And amidst all this chaos, we get a truly unfair final clash. We have Su-chan, armed with a vast skill set of overpowered spatial and elemental abilities, facing off against his newest enemy, Pangi. What makes Pangi so deeply terrifying is his unstoppable, manic, cellular regeneration. Literally, no matter what fatal blow Su-chan lands, whether it's ice manipulation or raw berserker strength, Pangi just laughs maniacally and regenerates instantly, completely mocking Su-chan's brute force. So has Su-chan's overpowered arsenal finally met its match against an immortal villain? Just as the battle hits its absolute bloody peak, we're left hanging. I mean, what happens when brute force and elemental powers just aren't enough? How does a tactician beat an enemy who simply won't die? You'll have to keep following the story to find out. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. I hope this breakdown helped you grasp the wild mechanics,
brutal mindsets, and thrilling narrative of Suchan's journey.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely brutal, high-octane manhwa timeline that totally flips the script on what it means to survive the end of the world. I mean, we're talking about a story packed with vicious betrayal, ice-cold revenge, and a protagonist who looks at the apocalypse and says, you know what, I'll be the one holding the pitchfork. It is a completely wild, cinematic ride, and we are going to break down every major twist and turn right here, right now. Let's get into it.
So I want you to imagine for a second that you're in our main guy's shoes. His name is Suchan. For 5 grueling years, he barely survived this nightmarish global apocalypse, scavenging every single day just to keep himself and his girlfriend Shokin alive. And his grand reward for all that loyalty? Well, the second supplies ran dry, she betrayed him and literally had him murdered. But, plot twist, instead of fading to black, Suchan wakes up exactly 30 days before the apocalypse even starts. What would you do with that kind of foresight? If you're Suchan, you don't play the hero. You don't try to save the world. You prepare to absolutely conquer it. Chapter 1. Betrayal and Rebirth. Okay, let's dive into this. The very second Suchan wakes up, 30 days before the world ends, he doesn't miss a beat. First order of business, he dumps that treacherous ex-girlfriend. Then it is straight to work. Knowing that cash is about to be completely worthless, he sells his house and hits up over 80 different banks to take out massive, massive loans. We're talking nearly $2 million in cold hard cash. He uses every cent to hoard an absurd amount of survival gear, including 2,000 tons of edible ice and smokeless charcoal. He's even out there hijacking massive warehouse deliveries. And you might be wondering, why? How is he carrying all this? Well, he's got a secret weapon. Turns out, Suchan has an incredibly overpowered starting toolset. His main hack is spatial space, which is basically a personal, alternate dimension over 10,000 meters wide where time literally stands still. That means a hot meal stays piping hot, and all that ice, it's never gonna melt. On top of that, he's got spatial jump. It lets him instantly teleport up to 3 meters. Perfect for dodging attacks. Or, stealing entire warehouse shipments without breaking a sweat. Combine all that with the brutal hand-to-hand combat skills he leveled up over 5 years in his past life, and he is a uniquely lethal survivor before the disaster even hits. Chapter 2. The Solar Apocalypse Begins. Suddenly, the moon starts glowing with this terrifying red aura, and the temperature on Earth just goes absolutely haywire. We're talking ground temperatures rocketing past 100 degrees Celsius. The sheer horror of this sudden heat wave is insane. The asphalt on the streets literally melts like butter, fusing people's shoes right to the road. Power plants are just overloading and exploding everywhere. If you step outside for more than 20 seconds, your skin blisters and you pass out. The entire world basically turns into a giant oven overnight. And this brilliantly illustrates the extreme, almost dark comedy vibe of the story. On one side of the glass, it's literal hell on Earth. You've got survivors, including the very thugs who bullied Suchan in his past life, burning alive in the melting streets, begging for just a single drop of water. And on the other side, we have Suchan. He has rented out the absolute best presidential suite at a luxury hotel, keeping it freezing cold with vertical AC units powered by giant batteries he stashed away. He is literally chilling in an ice-cold indoor pool, feasting on a massive banquet, while the end of the world is raging right outside his front door. But here's the thing, the heat doesn't just kill you, it changes you. People exposed to that extreme solar radiation don't simply die, they mutate into these things called drought demons. Think of them as hyper-aggressive, fire-resistant zombies. But what makes them truly nightmare fuel is that they aren't mindless. They retain fragments of their past memories and consciousness. They know exactly who they are, and they know exactly what they're doing as they hunt down the remaining normal humans just to harvest their moisture and meat. Which brings us to Suchan's very first major confrontation. His ex-girlfriend, Shokin, gets consumed by the heat, turns to cannibalism, and actually mutates into a massive, heavily armored drought demon with insane regenerative abilities. When she eventually breaks onto his hotel floor, Suchan doesn't just fight her, he dismantles her. Because she can heal, he uses it as an excuse to repeatedly, gruesomely remove her limbs across 5 different rounds of combat. He's testing her limits before finally putting her down for good. It is a brutal, super definitive end to the person who murdered him in his past life. Chapter 3. Evolving Through Mutant Cores. So, how do you get stronger in this universe? Well, when a powerful mutant or demon bites the dust, they leave behind this glowing purple crystal core in their head or chest. If a human manages to extract and actually drink this core, their body violently absorbs the energy, causing them to mutate and gain superhuman abilities. Sujin grabs a high-level core pretty early on, which hooks him up with the Berserker ability. This specific mutation basically turns his skin as hard as steel, meaning he's practically immune to normal weapons and zombie bites. And trust me, he needs that steel skin because the environment is about to throw the mother of all plot twists. That insane global heat, it causes volcanoes all over the planet to erupt simultaneously. The ash totally blacks out the sun, temperatures violently crash, and suddenly this scorching desert world turns into an apocalyptic flood. We're talking entire cities instantly submerged under raging, rushing waters. In this new flooded reality, aquatic predators are at the top of the food chain. Suchan goes out of his way to hunt down one of the absolute worst early threats, the golden king cobra. When he goes toe-to-toe with this massive mutating snake, he quickly figures out its scales are way too tough for conventional weapons. I mean, his sword literally shatters against its hide. Does he panic? Not even a little. Suchan just drops the broken blade, drops that cold one-liner about using his fists, and taps into his raw berserker strength to literally rip this giant snake in half with his bare hands. By snagging that core from the Golden King Cobra, Suchin's power scaling just goes through the roof. He already had the berserker strength, right? But now his body mutates again to allow for water breathing. His skin literally adapts to pull oxygen straight out of the water, which grants him crazy aquatic mobility and enhanced agility. He has perfectly evolved to thrive in this flooded world, making sure he stays miles ahead of whatever's left of humanity. Chapter 4. Defeating the Rat King. Now, what's really interesting about his next stop at the university is how we see Suchan leaning into some truly ruthless, out-of-the-box combat tactics. He runs into this mutated sumo captain who uses super dense fat cells to rapidly regenerate from basically any wound. Slashing him? Useless. So what does our guy do? Suchan just grabs a highly explosive weapon battery, physically pries the mutant's jaws open, shoves the battery right down his throat, and clamps his mouth shut. Boom. Problem solved. It's incredibly dark, hyper-efficient, and just pure Suchan. But that sumo captain was really just a speed bump. The main event of this arc is a deranged, mad scientist named Liu Xian. Liu's been busy experimenting with what he calls the apocalypse gene, literally splicing human DNA with rats. He seriously views himself as a god among insects, delivering this super villainous speech about how he's destined to rule the world. And to back it up, he injects himself with the pure gene serum. What follows is a battle that plays out like the wildest, most gruesome comic book panel you can imagine. Liu transforms into this horrifying, building-sized rat jackal hybrid. And in a massive turning point, Liu actually manages to swallow Suchan completely whole. The scientist is laughing, declaring victory, and summoning his giant swarm of mutant rats to clean up. But then, the ultimate shocker. Suchan's fist violently bursts right through Liu's chest from the inside out. He literally rips his way out of the monster's internal organs, ending the scientist on the spot and claiming the ultra-rare Rat King core for himself. Let's take a quick tally here, because by consuming the Rat King core on top of everything else, Suchan is basically a walking cheat code. Check this out. He's got spatial storage and teleportation, steel skin, water manipulation, the brand new ability to generate ice, total immunity to mind control, and, get this, corpse control. Yeah, he can command the dead now. He's not just a survivor anymore. He is straight up the apex predator of this entire post-apocalyptic food chain. Chapter 5. Building the ultimate safe zone. Of course, building a safe zone means you have to deal with the absolute worst of human nature. Enter the Devourers. This is a terrifying, highly organized faction of survivors who looked at the apocalypse and decided, yep, cannibalism is the way to go. And they aren't mindless zombies. They are cold, calculating humans who actively hunt other people. They treat normal survivors as literal livestock to harvest for meat and supplies. They are, without a doubt, the ultimate evil lurking in this flooded wasteland. Let's move ahead and see how this builds up to a massive confrontation. Suchan arrives at one of the biggest surviving human settlements, only to uncover a genuinely sickening secret. The guy running the place, City Lord Zhang, plays the benevolent leader, but he's actually forged a secret, twisted treaty with the Devourers. To keep himself and his VIPs well-fed and safe, Zhang has been systematically kidnapping innocent refugees from his own camp and trading them to the cannibals. Suchan digs this up and ruthlessly exposes the City Lord right in front of the settlement's entire military and civilian population.
And that grand reveal sparks one of the most intense, cold-blooded climaxes we've seen. A tense standoff kicks off between City Lord Zhang, his incredibly arrogant son, and this honorable military commander named General Gao, who actually decides to side with Su Chan. When Zhang's son makes the mistake of trying to shoot our protagonist, Su Chan teleports, grabs the kid, and executes him by literally shoving a live grenade into his mouth. The explosion instantly shatters the corrupt regime. With the City Lord defeated and exposed as the devourer himself, Su Chan and General Gao take full control of the survivors, vowing to build a real, classless safe zone.
Which brings us to the end of our timeline and leaves us with a seriously provocative question. Think about it. Su Chan has saved thousands of lives, dismantled a cannibalistic empire, and laid the groundwork for a genuine human sanctuary. But he did it using unmatched brutality, psychological warfare, and overwhelming, godlike violence. He never hesitates to torture or obliterate anyone who gets in his way. So is he the ruthless savior this broken world desperately needs, or has he just become the most terrifying monster in the apocalypse? It's a fascinating character study, and it absolutely leaves you craving Season 2. Thanks for hanging out with us for this explainer, and we will catch you in the next one.
All right, let's jump right into today's explainer, because we are setting the stage for a truly ruthless tale of survival, betrayal, and timeline regression. We're looking at a story where the climate disaster isn't some slow, gradual burn. No, it's an instantaneous, literal melting of the world. And our main guy, well, he isn't just trying to scrape by and survive. He is completely gaming the system.
So, I want you to ask yourself something. What would you do if the world was going to literally melt in exactly 30 days? That's the core premise we're unpacking today. Just imagine looking up at the sky knowing that in 1 month, the moon is going to mutate, emit this eerie red aura, and global temperatures will violently spike over 100 degrees Celsius. The asphalt? It'll melt your skin on contact. Power plants will spontaneously explode from the heat, and humanity will be trapped indoors to just slowly dehydrate. But what if you had already lived through it, died a horrible, painful death, and suddenly woke up 30 days before it all kicked off?
You have to look at the stark contrast between Su Chan's two lives, right? So his first life was totally defined by loyalty and, honestly, victimhood. He spent 5 grueling years scavenging in a literal burning wasteland just to keep his girlfriend, Jang Shokin, alive. And his reward for all that? The second supplies ran low, she had her new lover murder him. Brutal, right? But now, he's regressed a month back in time. And the new Su Chan? Yeah. He isn't playing the hero anymore. He's ruthless, he's calculated, and his sole mission is to min-max the apocalypse by hoarding an unimaginable $3 billion in resources. He actually vows to be the cruelest person alive. Now, the key to his whole survival strategy comes down to one staggering number, 10,000. When he returns to the past, he awakens this insane spatial dimension that is over 10,000 meters wide. And get this, the real kicker? Time is completely frozen inside it. Hot food stays hot, iced is frozen forever. It's like the ultimate cheat code. He immediately tests this out at his day job by instantly draining his boss's entire Walmart-style warehouse right into this void. Oh, and he also has a secondary ability to teleport up to 3 meters, making him virtually untouchable in a fight. Okay, so how does a regular guy amass the capital to fill a 10,000-meter void before the world ends? Well, he orchestrates a brilliant, rapid-fire financial heist. Step 1, he sells his $1 million house to a shady real estate agent for $700,000 in immediate cold hard cash. Step 2, before the paperwork even clears, he takes that exact same house deed to a loan shark named Dahai, who, by the way, just coincidentally happens to be the brother of his ex-girlfriend's new lover, and he secures a $600,000 loan. Step 3, he literally downloads over 80 banking apps and maxes out microloans to scrape together another $970,000. He completely tanks his credit and swindles the local thugs, knowing full well that in 30 days, money is just going to be useless paper burning in the streets.
So, with millions in cash in hand, the clock is ticking, and his spending spree is just relentless. By day 2, he orders 2,000 tons of smokeless charcoal. By day 3, he visits an ice factory and casually drops $800,000 on massive blocks of edible ice. I mean, these are absolutely crucial extreme temperature survival essentials. And to make it even sweeter, he tricks his treacherous ex-girlfriend Shokin and her friend Lena into doing all the heavy lifting to move the boxes. He basically convinces them he's secretly a millionaire, setting up a charity event, and they happily act as free labor, dreaming of this luxurious wedding that is, spoiler alert, never ever gonna happen. But the crown jewel of his prep?
It comes with a staggering price tag, $10 million. Suchan goes to the ultra-secure Green City Hotel and orders a 1,000-table luxury banquet. Now, he only pays a $500,000 deposit, but that secures $10 million worth of high-end, perfectly cooked food. And because of his time-frozen spatial dimension, he just stashes the entire banquet away. Boom. He now has endless, pristine meals ready for a world that will very soon kill over a stale scrap of bread. Which brings us right to the tipping point. Suchan secures the presidential suite at the Green City Hotel, which is a building he already knows will withstand the coming disasters. He's got a pool, vertical air conditioning, massive backup batteries, the whole shebang. He stands by the window, glass in hand, looks up at the sky, and simply says, "Welcome to the apocalypse." When the moment actually arrives, the horror is absolute. The moon violently trembles and emits this piercing red aura. In an instant, literally an instant, the ambient temperature outside spikes by over 75 degrees, pushing ground temperatures well over 100 degrees Celsius. People out in the streets literally melt into the boiling asphalt. Car tires are bursting. Power plants detonate from the sheer overwhelming heat. It's this immediate, catastrophic shift from everyday life straight into a literal burning hellscape. And the dramatic irony here is just brutal. Up inside the presidential suite, Suchan is lounging in his private pool, eating a lavish breakfast in cool, air-conditioned comfort. Meanwhile, just floors below in the hotel lobby, the power has completely failed. People are trapped in the dark, they're stripping off their clothes, suffering from severe burns, and literally fighting over the last drops of murky water in an ornamental aquarium. It is a stark, terrifying portrait of absolute inequality by design. Of course, desperation breeds violence, right? The mob in the lobby, led by the loan shark Tahai, who is currently suffering from severe burns, storms up to Suchan's suite, demanding he share his resources. Suchan just opens the door, letting that blast of freezing cold air hit them, only to immediately pull out a gun and shoot Tahai right in the stomach, and then again in the leg. Suchan holds up his fingers and gives the terrified crowd exactly 3 seconds. He tells them flat out, anyone left in his line of sight after 3 seconds will go to the next life. Believe me, the crowd scrambles. But it's not just the desperate mob he has to worry about. When Special Forces Captain Xiao Feng attempts to breach the room to save the so-called hostages, Suchan doesn't even break a sweat. He easily subdues the highly trained captain using sleeping gas and flashbangs. When Xiao Feng finally wakes up, Suchan reveals his room is rigged with facial recognition cameras wired directly into an automated machine gun. Yeah, the presidential suite isn't just a fancy hotel room anymore. It is an impenetrable high-tech fortress. Suchan's chilling new worldview is put on full display when he finally goes down to the lobby to dictate terms. He addresses this ruthless local underworld boss named Gao Kong, who also goes by Skullcrusher. Now, the military wants everyone to evacuate to a midnight rescue point, but Suchan knows the asphalt will still be hot enough to melt the flesh right off their feet. He looks at the people clinging to hope and says, in times of chaos, you're still dreaming of restoring order? He knows the old rules of society. They're already dead and gone. So, 3 distinct factions immediately emerge in this doomed hotel. Up at the top, you've got Suchan in the presidential suite. He's secure, armed, with basically infinite ice and food. Down in the lobby, you have Skullcrusher, who straight up murders a wealthy VIP named Mr. Sun just to assert total dominance, hoarding what little ice Suchan throws their way, and taking the women as hostages. And finally, you have Captain Xiao Feng and the military rescue, who are desperately trying to evacuate civilians in armored tanks, a mission Suchan knows is a guaranteed death sentence because of the ground heat. But as if things couldn't get any worse, the heat isn't the only enemy here. As the night progresses, a terrifying new threat emerges. We are introduced to the drought demons. Now, these aren't your standard, mindless zombies. When a burn victim dies from the extreme, unnatural heat of the red moon, they mutate. They rise back up with glowing red eyes. But the truly horrific part, they actually retain fragments of their past memories, acting on pure, violent instinct directed specifically at those who wronged them in life. And this is exactly where the dynamic completely shifts. Skullcrusher's victim, Mr. Sun, he reanimates as a drought demon. Skullcrusher knows that killing him will unlock a hidden evolutionary power, but Suchan, who's been watching from above this whole time, swoops in. He uses his spatial jump, pushes the other thugs right into the monsters, and intentionally steals the kill on Mr. Sun. From the monster's body, Suchan extracts a rare evolutionary core, the purple power crystal. The aftermath of this kill changes absolutely everything. Suchan absorbs the crystal by dissolving it in water. Now, the evolution is agonizing. His eyes turn red, his body literally burns. But when he recovers, oh man, he has gained extreme heat resistance, enhanced agility, and superhuman strength. He no longer just has a tactical advantage with his endless supplies, he can now physically dominate the apocalyptic environment. He is basically leveled up. Meanwhile, the scene down in the lobby is just pathetic and gruesome. Let's look at Shoken, the ex-girlfriend who originally had Suchin murdered. Earlier, she was so arrogant, demanding a luxury wedding and acting like she owned the world. Now, under Skullcrusher's tyrannical rule, she is utterly desperate. When Skullcrusher tells her there's no food left, but very heavily hints that they can eat her friend Lena, Shoken doesn't even hesitate. She violently attacks her own best friend just for the promise of meat. She abandons every single shred of her humanity just to survive. Talk about a brutal reality check. This absolute desperation leads to a pivotal moment with Chef Duan. She's a highly skilled surgeon and chef who quickly realizes the lobby is a total death trap. She goes up to Suchan's room, sees him with his new superhuman physique, and begs to prove her worth just to stay in his air-conditioned paradise. Suchan agrees, knowing a doctor is a super rare asset, but he delivers this incredibly chilling ultimatum. Your only choice is to behave. If she plots behind his back for even a second, it's over. He has established his absolute, unquestionable authority. So, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to chew on. When the world burns away all the rules, who do you become to survive? Suchan chose to become the very villain he fell victim to in his past life, utilizing hyper-preparation, total ruthlessness, and literal superpowers to game the apocalypse. But as he solidifies his kingdom up in the presidential suite, you really have to wonder, what on earth is he going to do next in this chaotic new world order? Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to explore an absolutely insane story of survival, time regression, and apocalyptic revenge. We're looking at a wildly popular manhwa narrative where the world doesn't just end, it literally boils over. So, if you're fascinated by extreme survival strategies and morally gray protagonists, you are in the perfect place.
Okay, let's dive into this. How would you survive if the Earth's temperature suddenly spiked by 100 degrees? It's the ultimate environmental nightmare, right? Society isn't just disrupted, it's instantly incinerated. This impossible scenario is the entire foundation of our explainer today. A broken world where relentless preparation is the absolute only difference between life and a really agonizing death.
I really want to emphasize the sheer brutality of this number. 100 degrees. We aren't just talking about a rough summer day where you need an extra fan. We are talking about a world where power plants spontaneously explode from the ambient heat. It's an environment where the asphalt gets so incredibly hot that car tires just pop on contact. If you stumble and touch the ground, you literally melt to the pavement. Humans exposed to the outdoors combust and die almost instantly. It is an immediate, catastrophic reset of human civilization.
Section 1. A 100-degree apocalypse. This is where we meet our protagonist, Suchan, who survived 5 brutal years in this heatwave apocalypse, only to be murdered over supplies by his gold-digging girlfriend, Jang Shoken.
Section 2. Rebirth and cheat abilities. But death isn't the end. Suchan wakes up exactly 1 month before the disaster begins, armed with the harrowing memories of his past life and a vow to be utterly ruthless.
To dominate this new era, he unlocks some absolutely overpowered cheat codes. First up, he gets a 10,000-meter spatial space. This is essentially a massive storage dimension where time is completely frozen, meaning a hot meal stored today is going to be piping hot 5 years from now. Second, he has infinite resource absorption. This lets him instantly suck surrounding items right into his storage. I mean, he literally uses this to secretly steal entire lakes of water and empty out massive Walmart warehouses without leaving a single trace. And finally, he possesses a 3-meter spatial jump. It's a short-range teleportation that lets him bypass security and escape completely unnoticed.
Section 3. The ultimate survival prep. Now, what's really interesting about this is how he leverages the old world's economy against itself.
This leads us to Suchan's absurd financial scam. It's kind of the ultimate cathartic fantasy, using hyper-capitalist predatory loans against the system itself, knowing the apocalypse will act as the ultimate debt forgiveness program. Let's break down this chaotic hustle step by step. First, he sells his $1 million house for $700K just to get the cash immediately in hand. Next, he takes out 80 different app loans, netting nearly $1 million more. Then he actually borrows $600K from a ruthless local loan shark.
With all this liquid cash, he puts a $500K deposit on a $10 million, 1,000-person luxury banquet at a disaster-proof hotel. And finally, he buys 2,000 tons of smokeless charcoal and $800K worth of edible ice. It is just a darkly comedic masterpiece, racking up massive, insurmountable debt right before the slate is completely wiped clean.
Section 4. The red moon strikes. The tension builds, the moon mutates, glowing red, and the temperatures instantly skyrocket.
And this brilliantly illustrates the insane contrast here. The moment the event happens, temperatures shoot up by over 70 degrees in mere seconds. Outside, it's absolute horror. Asphalt melts the shoes off people's feet, tires violently pop, and people are desperately diving into hotel aquariums just to cool down as they literally spontaneously combust on the pavement. But inside Sushan's room, he's barricaded in a heavily battered, battery-powered presidential suite. We're talking chilly air conditioning, a private indoor swimming pool, and he's just lounging on a sofa eating fried chicken with infinite ice. He's created a literal paradise in the middle of hell.
Section 5. Siege of the Presidential Suite. Obviously, a paradise attracts desperate people, from his awful ex-girlfriend to loan sharks and even special forces trying to break into his freezing room, only to be stopped by his automated machine gun turrets.
While Suchan defends his fortress, the hotel lobby below descends into total Lord of the Flies chaos. The power grid fails, and everyone else is plunged into this suffocating heat. Suchan watches from above and notes, "In times of chaos, you're still dreaming of restoring order." The old rules are completely dead. Brutal strength is literally the only law left. We see this when a ruthless gangster named Skull Crusher Gao Kang takes complete control of the lobby by instantly snapping a wealthy patron's neck just to prove a point.
Section 6. Evolving in the New World. You see, the heat wave doesn't just kill people. The extreme environment actually forces horrifying mutations.
This brings us to a terrifying new threat, the Drought Demon. This is a heat-exposed corpse that mutates into a zombie. And what makes them so incredibly creepy is that they retain fragments of their past memories. You remember those loan sharks who burned to death outside the hotel? Yeah, their scorched corpses reanimate in the middle of the night as drought demons. They shatter the hotel lobby glass and violently attack the survivors in the lobby. It's a relentless ecosystem where even the dead have to adapt to the heat.
But these monsters hold the very key to surviving this new era, the purple crystal. This is an incredibly rare core dropped by defeated drought demons that grants superhuman evolution when consumed. During the lobby attack, Gao Kang tries to kill the demons to claim this immense power, but Suchan? He uses his incredible agility, leaps down, intercepts the kill, and steals the crystal right out from under him. It's a classic, deeply satisfying gaming trope. He drinks the core, and his body immediately mutates, granting him vast superhuman strength and extreme heat resistance to finally fully adapt and dominate this broken world.
Which leads us with a final, provocative question to think about. When the world burns and all morals melt away, what lines would you cross to survive the New World Order? Suchan completely abandoned societal norms to build his freezing fortress and hijack the evolution system while everyone else literally burned. It's a brutal, fascinating look at human survival instincts pushed to the absolute extreme. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.
So picture this. You look up at the night sky and the moon is literally mutating. It's glowing with this terrifying blood-red aura, and suddenly, the temperature outside just skyrockets. We aren't talking about a rough summer day here. We're talking about a world where stepping outside for just 20 seconds makes you pass out. The asphalt gets so blisteringly hot that if you touch it, your skin instantly melts. I mean, real-world heat waves are getting intense and testing human endurance, sure. But today's story takes that concept to the absolute extreme. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the ultimate survival strategy for a world pushed way beyond the brink, and we're going to break down a truly fascinating story of extreme preparation and ruthless adaptation. So, how exactly do you survive a 100-degree apocalypse? In this world, the heat is an instant killer. Think about how much we rely on air conditioning during a normal summer, right? And how fast panic sets in during a regional blackout. Now imagine the entire power grid detonating, because the power plants themselves literally explode from the extreme temperatures. Society as we know it just evaporates overnight. Everything becomes a frantic, desperate scramble for water, for shade, for just one more day of life. To survive this, you can't just rely on luck. You have to be prepared in a way that defies all normal human logic. 3. billion. That is the massive, almost unbelievable goal of our protagonist, Suchan. 3 billion in resources hoarded before society even realizes the clock is ticking down to zero. He's not just casually stocking up his pantry for a rainy day. He's treating the impending apocalypse like a hostile corporate takeover. It really makes you wonder, what would you prioritize if you knew your bank account was about to mean absolutely nothing?
Section 1. The 100-Degree Apocalypse. A brutal backstory.
Here's the kicker. Suchan has actually lived through this hell before. In his past life, he survived for 5 grueling years in this hellscape, constantly risking his own neck to scavenge for his girlfriend, Shaokin. But the moment supplies ran low, she had him betrayed and murdered just so she could side with someone else. But fate hit the reset button. He's reborn exactly 1 month before the disaster, with full knowledge of what's coming. Suchan isn't just trying to survive this time around, he is fueled by calculated, cold-blooded karmic revenge. Plus, he's awakened spatial powers, and he is ready to totally weaponize his knowledge of the future.
Section 2. The Ultimate Preparation Strategy. A new economic tactic.
Suchan's financial strategy is basically a masterclass in exploiting a doomed economy. He sells his house at a massive discount to get $700,000 in immediate cash. Why? Because, real estate is completely worthless when the ground is boiling. Then he takes out 80 different app loans to grab another $970,000. Imagine just not caring at all about your credit score because you know money's going to be literal ash in a few weeks. He converts all this temporary digital wealth into hardcore tangible survival assets. We're talking 2,000 tons of smokeless charcoal, 800,000 spent purely on edible ice, and a massive $500,000 deposit on a luxurious 1,000-person hotel banquet just to stockpile perfectly prepared high-end food.
But seriously, where do you even put 2,000 tons of charcoal and an entire banquet? Well, Suchan has a spatial storage dimension that's over 10,000 meters wide. And the absolute best part? Time inside is completely frozen. Hot food stays steaming hot, ice never melts. He even uses his spatial jump, which is this wild 3-meter teleportation ability to completely clear out the entire warehouse of the Walmart where he works. He takes every last thing for himself as payback against a boss who would have otherwise hoarded it all anyway. You got to admit, that is the ultimate apocalyptic 2 weeks notice.
Section 3. Disaster strikes the city. The clock runs out. The onset of this disaster is terrifying, and it happens fast. The exact second the moon emits its mutated red aura, the outside temperature spikes by over 75 degrees. The ground temperature shatters 100 degrees. People outside are instantly burned, and their shoes are melting straight to the asphalt. Overheated tower plants just explode in a massive chain reaction. We already see real-world power grids buckle and fail during severe summer heat waves today, so you can only imagine the instantaneous devastation here. The city is plunged into total darkness, cutting off air conditioning for millions. Civilization falls apart not in days, but in literal minutes. Outside the Green City Hotel, it is a literal hellscape. Tires are melting on cars, people are dying of extreme heat exposure left and right. But inside, Suchan has locked down the presidential suite. He's got vertical AC units running on giant battery reserves. He has a private swimming pool, iced drinks, and endless amounts of high-end food. He is living in absolute luxury while the world is literally burning right outside his window.
Section 4. Defending the presidential suite. Protecting the luxury.
So when the hotel's main power inevitably goes out, his enemies, including those debt collectors and his treacherous ex-girlfriend Shaokin, they realize he has power in EC. Obviously, they demand access. But Suchan, he doesn't negotiate. When a debt collector steps foot into his room, Suchan simply shoots him in the stomach and the leg, delivering this chilling ultimatum. Whoever wants to die can stay there. I'll give you 3 seconds. But really, how is a desperate crowd going to react to a locked door and a loaded gun? The mob outside isn't just a bunch of ordinary citizens. It includes a corrupt, super powerful VIP named Mr. Sun and a highly dangerous underworld boss named Gao Kong. The tension here is palpable. The crowd wants his resources, but Suchan has established a very clear, very lethal boundary. And they really shouldn't test him. Suchan's defenses are just overwhelming. When a special forces captain named Zhao Feng tries to raid the room under the guise of a rescue, Suchan effortlessly dispatches him. He utilizes flashbangs, sleeping gas, and his spatial teleportation to just knock the captain out completely. And if a mob were to charge? Well, he has automated machine guns hooked up to facial recognition software. His room is basically an impenetrable fortress.
Section 5. The Drought Demon Threat. Extreme heat mutates. Now, these aren't your typical virus-borne zombies. These are called drought demons. When a victim succumbs to the extreme heat and burns to death on the pavement, like the injured debt collector Dahai who Suchan threw outside, their corpse mutates. They reanimate with glowing red eyes, totally driven by this aggressive, bloodthirsty dehydration. But here is the chilling part. They actually retain fragmented memories of their past lives, and specifically, those who wronged them. Just imagine your own grudges reanimating you purely out of spite and absolute thirst. That first night escalates into pure horror. At 10 p.m., the military announces a midnight rescue point. By 11 p.m., desperate survivors are trying to walk there, only to have their feet literally melt to the burning asphalt. And at midnight, all those burnt casualties reanimate. The rescue mission turns into an absolute slaughterhouse as the drought demons begin hunting the living. Section 6. Evolving in the New World. Gaining superhuman power. Sunshin uses all this chaos for a brilliant, opportunistic play. The corrupt VIP, Mr. Sun, ends up getting murdered by the mob boss Gao Kang. Moments later, Mr. Sun reanimates as a drought demon and immediately attacks Gao Kang out of residual memory. Now, Gao Kang thinks if he kills the demon, he might get some sort of powers, but Sunshan, who's been watching from above this whole time, swoops in at the exact right second, steals the kill, extracts a highly rare purple evolution crystal right out of the demon's body, and just drinks it right in front of them. This crystal triggered a violent, incredibly painful evolution. His body fundamentally changes. He gains extreme resistance to the 100-degree heat, vastly enhanced agility, and literal superhuman strength. He is no longer just a smart guy with a gun and a cold room. He is physically adapted to completely dominate this wasteland. With a fortified base and crazy new superhuman abilities, he knows he needs to secure long-term utility. So he expands his team of one by recruiting Chef Duan. But she isn't just a chef. She was actually a surgeon for 3 years. In his past life, she was famously known as Hell's Chef. Suchan establishes incredibly strict loyalty rules before letting her into his sanctuary, instantly securing vital medical and culinary expertise for the brutal years ahead. So, Suchan has outsmarted the mob, secured his fortress, and literally evolved his own body. But in a world where everyone is pushed to their absolute limits and former allies are becoming vicious monsters, with the city burning and his enemies adapting, who is Suchan going to have to betray next to survive? It's a ruthless strategy for a ruthless world, and it definitely leaves us wondering just how far he is willing to go. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the apocalypse. Keep learning, keep preparing, and we'll see you in the next explainer. All right, let's jump straight into this explainer because we are looking at a genuinely incredible narrative today. It's a story where our protagonist, a 29-year-old, anxiety-ridden turbo loser named Maru Han, goes from having crippling panic attacks during public service job interviews to literally becoming the most ruthless, monster-devouring powerhouse in the entire world. It takes that classic underdog trope we all know and love and just injects it with pure, terrifying adrenaline. So the core premise of this universe is brutal but simple. Ordinary awakened humans join a special task force to fight nightmarish creatures. But there's a catch. They are strictly limited to possessing just a single demonic ability. Maru, on the other hand, well, he accidentally discovers a way to break the system entirely. By violently consuming the monsters themselves, he figures out how to stack their powers infinitely. Now, to fully grasp how this world operates, we have to talk about yellow dust. Basically, this is a dangerous, toxic fog that spawns terrifying demons, which are ranked from level 1 all the way to a catastrophic level 10. But here's the crazy paradox. While it brings death, it also acts like a massive arena buff for awakened humans, letting them rapidly heal their injuries while fighting inside it. But make no mistake, it's not invincibility. A fatal blow is still going to end you for good. And the stakes hanging over humanity right now are absolutely terrifying. This isn't just some open-ended war. According to a dire prophecy, they have exactly 1 year before portals open up worldwide and demons literally rain from the sky. We're talking a full-on apocalyptic bloodbath. The clock is relentlessly ticking down. Okay, Section 1. The Turbo Loser Awakens. Let's officially meet Maru Han. When we first get introduced to Maru, the guy is at his absolute lowest. He just failed his 5th consecutive government job interview because of a massive panic attack. This was triggered by some deep childhood trauma involving his father, who mysteriously disappeared 20 years ago into a monstrous dimension known as the Abyss. Maru is not trying to be a hero, okay? He just wants a safe, quiet desk job.
So desperate to cleanse his father's spirit and maybe fix his horrible luck, he visits a restricted mountain. But instead of finding peace, he gets ambushed by a level 1, bloated yellow dust demon. And in this deeply unsettling moment, the monster just repeats the phrase, "safety first," right before violently impaling Maru straight through the stomach, leaving him on the ground to bleed out.
So picture this. He's right on the brink of death, but fueled by the memory of his giant, loving mother and hallucinating his missing father's terrifying command to eat, Maru just snaps. He lunges forward, leans over, and literally bites a massive chunk right out of the demon's neck. And by swallowing it, he accidentally awakens this ultra-rare gluttony ability. He rapidly regenerates his fatal wound and permanently secures his spot in this violent supernatural world. Which brings us to Section 2, stealing the first ability. Maru gets drafted into the eccentric Gangwa task force, but with a weak level 1 power, everybody instantly writes him off as useless dead weight.
But everything changes during a hiking trip. A level 5 demon attacks his mother, forcing an utterly terrified Maru into a desperate fight. I mean, we've all faced problems in life that seem to bounce our own efforts right back at us, right? Well, Maru is facing a literal wall he cannot just outpunch. It's a mirror demon. It uses a reflection ability to perfectly mimic its opponent's moves and completely matches their recovery speed. To protect his mom, Maru has to tap into a newfound tactical mindset. He actually weaponizes his own fear. He deliberately lets the demon copy his throwing knife attacks, and then he launches an entire barrage of blades straight up into the sky. He tackles the demon so they both get impaled by the falling knives. Maru manages to sever its head, devours the remains, and realizes a total game-changing truth here. He doesn't just stop a monster's regeneration, he actually steals and stacks their abilities infinitely. Moving on to Section 3, surviving the trap house. Enter the level 7 demon. Now, heavily armed with stolen powers, Maru finds himself trapped in a truly claustrophobic nightmare. He and his hyper-arrogant teammate Shanwu get stuck inside an abandoned house by a level 7 hikikomori demon, and this thing continuously shrinks the walls to slowly crush them to death. As the room is rapidly collapsing, the rest of the team shows up, and man, we see just how brutal their powers really are. King sacrifices her own blood for blades. Shanwu literally breaks his own fingers to inflict identical damage on the demons. Yan summons a massive spider, and Kim Yonk spreads a corrosive mold while sleeping. They are throwing down against an endless horde of clones, using these highly self-destructive abilities just to survive the night. Then we get a hype-inducing moment of pure cinematic payoff where Maru truly proves his worth. Amidst all this chaos, he locates the real demon hiding among the clones. He activates the mirror ability he stole earlier, looks up, and commands the crushing ceiling to just freeze in place, completely stopping the trap and saving his entire squad from a pretty gruesome death. Section 4, the psychological demon, a battle of the mind. Things escalate drastically here when a terrifying, kimono-wearing demon from the deepest part of hell shows up. This monster is a nightmare because it weaponizes something we all struggle with, our own past traumas and deep insecurities. It proves that sometimes the absolute worst demons aren't physical, they're mental. It completely breaks Kang by dredging up the guilt of her little brother dying to protect her, and it shatters Shanwu by forcing him to relive his mother abandoning him. This leaves Maru totally alone to face a creature that uses his father's mysterious disappearance to trigger his debilitating, paralyzing panic attacks. But, proving his unmatched resolve and sheer willpower, Maru realizes something crucial. To beat a mind reader, you can't listen to it. So he intentionally destroys his own hearing by rupturing his eardrums. Now, completely deaf to the mental attacks, he traps the demon inside a car, spawns clones using his stolen abilities, and brutally devours the monster, even as the vehicle is completely crushed by gravity into a flat, red puddle. While Shanwu and Kang are digging Maru's mangled corpse out of the wreckage, they witness something that just completely shatters their understanding of the world. Maru's broken body begins spontaneously generating its own yellow dust to heal his fatal wounds. This is the ultimate taboo in this universe. It proves that because his father forced him to eat a demon as a child, Maru isn't just a regular awakened human anymore. He is, for all intents and purposes, part monster himself. And that leads us to Section 5, the ultimate evolution. A level 10 threat. This shocking revelation pushes us right into the final, catastrophic act of our explainer. Maru, along with a sweet, chubby side character named Wu, find themselves facing off against a nightmare creature. This beast evolves, hardens into a cocoon, and grows exponentially stronger every single time it gets killed. The beast quickly overpowers them, and despite Maru frantically generating his own yellow dust to try and heal him, Wu is brutally killed. This marks the very first devastating loss of a teammate in the narrative. It's a heavy, deeply heartbreaking moment that sends Maru into a dark spiral of vengeful rage. He blames himself, and he realizes he absolutely cannot afford to hold back anymore.
The entire mountain violently shakes as the evolution demon successfully reaches its final form. Level 10. This is a catastrophic, apocalyptic threat level. It forces even the absolute strongest task force leaders in the area, including the badass Kang, to realize they are hopelessly, undeniably outmatched. A level 10 demon simply cannot be stopped by normal means.
Realizing he has zero other options, Maru makes the ultimate sacrifice. He grabs a wooden stake and deliberately impales his own heart, right in front of Kang. Why would he do that? To force his body to trigger the evolution ability he just stole from the creature. The transformation is absolute. He goes from this terrified, highly empathetic civilian into a towering, emotionless, muscle-bound powerhouse. As the newly evolved Maru effortlessly catches the level 10 demon's devastating punch and violently rips its arm off with this terrifyingly blank, empty expression on his face, we are left staring at a chilling reality. In his desperate quest to save humanity from the coming apocalypse, we really have to ask, has Maru finally surrendered the last shred of his own humanity? What happens when the only way to kill a monster is to become an even hungrier one?
Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are plunging headfirst into a seriously dark, completely action-packed narrative. We're going to be tracing the cinematic descent of a character who starts out as this completely ordinary, totally anxiety-ridden guy and transforms into something, well, something entirely different. We are talking about the story of Maru Han. Now, right off the bat, this is absolutely not your standard superhero origin story. This is a gritty, incredibly visceral tale of survival, trauma, and honestly, the terrifying cost of power. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the world around you, just wait until you see how Maru handles it. So grab a seat and get ready because this journey goes deep into the abyss.
Okay, to kick things off, I want you to ask yourself a question. What if the only way to survive the apocalypse was to literally eat it? It's a super grim, insanely high-stakes reality. We're talking about a world where monstrous demons just emerge from this toxic yellow dust to slaughter humanity. And our protagonist? He doesn't survive by, shooting lasers or wielding some legendary magical sword. Nope. He survives through pure, unadulterated gluttony. So let's dive into this incredibly unique survival mechanic and see exactly where it all begins.
Section 1. The Weakest Awakens. Let's look at Maru Han's dark origin. We have to start our chronological journey with Maru at literal rock bottom. He's 29 years old, totally crippled by severe social anxiety, and honestly, he just wants a safe, boring civil servant job. The guy desperately craves stability, but look at his actual life. He decides to visit a mountain to appease his late father's spirit, hoping to somehow cure his chronic bad luck. And instead, he gets engulfed by toxic yellow dust and ambushed by a grotesque demon. So much for a boring office job, right? His search for a normal life leads him straight into a waking nightmare. During this ambush, it gets brutal. The monster actually impales Maru, so he's bleeding out, suffering a massive panic attack, and right in that moment, he remembers this really twisted piece of advice from his dad. Eat well. Driven by pure, desperate survival instinct, Maru doesn't just try to fight back with his fists. He bites back. He sinks his teeth right into the monster's neck, literally tearing off a chunk of its flesh. It is such a wildly visceral, inciting incident, and it changes the entire trajectory of his life forever.
Because of that one desperate bite, Maru awakens a totally unique power, gluttony, and the mechanics here are just insane. By devouring the flesh of demons, Maru completely bypasses their crazy healing factors, but even more importantly, he infinitely steals their abilities. He literally eats his enemies to level up, which completely breaks the power scaling of this entire world. The main takeaway here, sometimes your absolute darkest survival instincts actually become your greatest weapons.
Section 2. Welcome to the Freak Squad. Let's meet the Ganghwa Island Squad.
Now that he's got this crazy new power, Maru trades his job interview suit for the battlefield, getting drafted by the government into a highly classified unit. And the stakes? They literally couldn't be higher. This organization is operating under a terrifying prophecy. Right now, in the present day, demons are gathering. But in exactly 12 months, the gates will fully open, and an apocalyptic reign of monsters is going to fall upon the world. So the ticking clock is officially set. They have exactly 1 year to get strong enough to stop the end of the world. No pressure, right? To prepare for this, Maru is assigned to the Gangwa Island Squad, which, let's be real, is basically an HR nightmare. It's this dumping ground for the most dangerous, unstable ability users. You have Captain Kong, who literally rips swords out of her own blood. Shan Wu, a wealthy psychopath who breaks his own bones just to shatter yours. There's Jiwan with her massive demon spider, Kim Yak, who uses toxic mold, and their super secretive powerhouse leader, Go Duckman. It's a squad made up of pure bloody action fantasy archetypes, and it's kind of wild to think that this crew is humanity's absolute best hope. Section 3. Stealing the Mirror Demon. Stepping up to a level 5 threat. Of course, Maru doesn't get the luxury of easing into this new life at all. He is immediately thrust into a massive spike in danger during a sudden demon outbreak on a mountain. His mother, who is pretty formidable herself, gets trapped by a level 5 demon that perfectly mimics its opponent's attacks and voices. When this thing mocks Maru using his own mother's voice, he completely loses it. Showing just incredible underdog bravery, he grabs the monster and hurls himself right off a mountain cliff to protect the only family he has left. Let's just put this number in a perspective for a second. Up to this point, Maru was officially ranked as a level 1 user. Literally the absolute weakest rank there is. But through sheer grit, insane tactical self-sacrifice, and that crazy gluttony ability of his, he manages to kill and devour a level 5 demon. He permanently steals its super powerful reflection and mirror abilities. So yeah, the power scaling in this story, it is shifting very, very rapidly. Section 4. Trapped in the Murder House. Facing the Lonely Demon. This rapid evolution of Maru's powers is immediately put to the test. The squad gets dispatched to what they think is just a routine threat, but it quickly spirals into a claustrophobic nightmare against a level 7 entity known as the Lonely Demon. This demon's power creates an inescapable trap house. The squad walks in, and the walls literally start closing in on them. They start out with a full-sized room. Hours later, they are fighting for their lives in half the space. Eventually, the room shrinks down to a critical 10%. They're agonizingly, slowly being crushed to death. But just as the squad is about to be completely flattened, Maru steps up. He activates that mirror ability he stole from the level 5 demon earlier. By perfectly mimicking the crushing force of the room, he pushes back, forcing the collapsing ceiling to a dead, grinding stop. It's such a massive, deeply satisfying payoff. Maru essentially uses the very power he risked his own life to steal, all to save his entire team from certain death. Section 5. The monster inside him. A shift into psychological dread. Now, the physical battles are awesome, for sure, but they are really only half the story here. The narrative takes this super sharp turn straight into psychological dread. The squad eventually faces a demon that attacks the mind. It looks right at Maru and completely weaponizes his lifelong trauma, dragging him down into this terrifying psychic hellscape. It taunts him, asking, "How did you feel when your father disappeared without a word?" It forces Maru to vividly relive his absolute darkest, most traumatic childhood memory. And this brings us to a totally haunting revelation. 20 years ago, Maru didn't just lose his father in some tragic accident. No, his father dragged a young, terrified Maru into the abyss, threw him at the feet of this horrific beast, and commanded him to do just one thing: eat. So Maru's gluttony, it isn't some random, lucky accident. It is a twisted, deeply ingrained legacy violently forced upon him when he was just a kid. This mental revelation comes with a seriously horrifying physical manifestation in the real world. During a subsequent battle, Maru gets crushed inside a car into a literal puddle of blood. It's gruesome, but he doesn't die. He regenerates completely. And here is the truly terrifying part. As he heals, he begins producing his own toxic yellow dust. Now remember, in this world, only demons do that. Maru survives because the abyss inside him is finally waking up. The crucial, terrifying takeaway here, he isn't just human anymore. He is rapidly becoming the very thing he's hunting. Section 6. Trading humanity for power. Making the ultimate sacrifice. This massive identity crisis perfectly sets the stage for our cinematic climax. A brand new type of monster spawns, an evolution demon. And the threat scaling here is just terrifying. It spawns as a super weak level 1, but every single time it takes damage, it hardens into a cocoon and mutates, leveling up instantly.
After violently slaughtering a rookie teammate, this thing rapidly mutates all the way up to a catastrophic level 10. The rest of the squad is miles away. Maru is completely, entirely alone against a literal god-tier threat. Realizing his base regeneration and his stolen skills aren't even enough to scratch a level 10 beast, Maru has to make the ultimate dark sacrifice. Because he previously took a desperate bite out of this evolving monster during the fight, he actually possesses a tiny fraction of its evolution mechanic. So what does he do? Maru takes a jagged stake and willingly plunges it directly into his own heart. He intentionally inflicts a fatal wound to force his own body into a cocoon state, literally trading the very last remnants of his humanity for the power to win. When Maru finally emerges from his cocoon, that anxious, panicky young man we met at the beginning, he is completely gone. What's left is this terrifying, emotionless powerhouse. With dead, empty eyes and absolutely zero expression on his face, Maru meets the level 10 monster's charge head-on. With effortless, brutal dominance, he simply grabs the beast and rips its arm clean off. It's wild. The underdog has officially, undeniably, become the apex predator. Which really just leaves us with this final, incredibly chilling thought. Maruhan survived the abyss by literally devouring it, ultimately gaining the power to dismantle a level 10 apocalypse-level demon. But as he stands there, totally cold, radiating his own toxic demon dust, you have to ask, is there any human left inside that shell at all? It really makes you wonder, if you were pushed to the absolute edge of extinction, how much of yourself would you sacrifice just to survive? Well, that's all for today's explainer. Keep analyzing, keep questioning, and I'll see you all next time. All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're mapping out the ultimate underdog story. It's about a hero who quite literally has to eat his enemies to survive. It's this dark, gritty, and just completely fascinating tale of a guy starting at the absolute rock bottom of society and eventually breaking every single rule in a desperate bid to save the world. In 1 year, monsters will rain from the sky, but the greatest threat might just be the guy eating them. Now that quote perfectly sets up the massive stakes of our story. We're not just dealing with some random monster of the week here. There is a terrifying, ticking clock to an absolute apocalypse. In exactly 1 year, the world is prophesied to end in a literal reign of demons. But there's this brilliant twist. The protagonist, tasked with stopping this apocalypse, he might actually become a bigger threat than the monsters themselves. Act 1. The pathetic ordinary and the call to action. So to understand how we get to that terrifying point, we gotta start at the beginning. Meet our protagonist, Maruhan. He's 29, chronically unemployed, and crippled by severe anxiety. Now, we've all had rough job interviews, but Maru's baseline is just pure, exhausting survival in normal society. He's so desperate for a stable, ordinary life as a public servant that he literally vomits all over his interviewer during a massive panic attack. Totally defeated, he retreats home to his incredibly loving, if a bit overbearing mother. She actually convinces him to visit a restricted mountain to appease his late father's spirit, hoping it'll finally help him land a job. But instead of a peaceful hike, Maru walks right into a nightmare. Out of this thick, toxic fog, a bloated, grotesque monster appears, just creepily repeating the phrase, "safety first." It's incredibly ironic, really, because this monster immediately impales Maru right through the stomach. Lying there bleeding out, this brutal moment acts as Maru's true call to action. He realizes, he doesn't actually want to die. He wants to live. He wants to make his mom proud. Facing absolute certain death, Maru suddenly remembers this repressed memory of his late father's voice just commanding him to eat. So he does the unthinkable. He bites directly into the demon's neck, tearing off a chunk of flesh. And doing this awakens a horrific yet completely overpowered ability called gluttony. It doesn't just stop the monster's insane healing factor, it actually allows Maru to permanently steal their supernatural skills. Act 2, The System and the Island of Misfits. Surviving this impossible encounter thrusts Maru completely out of his ordinary life. He gets recruited into a hidden, deadly government task force meant to fight these demons. And that's where he discovers the core mechanic of this universe, yellow dust. This toxic mist is emitted by the demons when they appear. Higher concentrations signal way higher threat levels, from a weak level 1 all the way up to an apocalyptic level 10. But here's the crazy catch. This dust is also what grants human ability users their powers. It's what allows them to regenerate from fatal wounds. They literally need the monster's toxic environment to survive fighting them. It's a wild paradox. Because his initially registered power level is so incredibly low, Maru gets sent to the Gangwa Island Task Force, which is basically a dumping ground for weirdos and outcasts.
You've got Kang Chana, their fierce leader who weaponizes her own blood, and yeah, Maru instantly develops a massive crush on her. Then there's Shan Wu, a psychotic rich kid who fights by breaking his own bones. You've got Go Duckman, their lazy boss in a Hawaiian shirt, who secretly wields a level 10 darkness ability. And Wu, this sweet, timid kid with a deadly venom ability. This chaotic, ragtag team of misfits becomes Maru's new family. And hey, he starts raking in massive hazard pay too. Act 3, Escalation and Psychological Warfare. So, the easy money? Yeah, it doesn't last. Maru quickly realizes he isn't limited to just stopping a monster's regeneration. But to gain a new power, he first has to suffer massive physical trauma from a demon just to understand its attack. Then, while he's bleeding and broken, he has to get close enough to bite them. Only then does he permanently integrate their power, like when he steals a reflection ability from a mountain monkey to save his mom. His progression literally requires him to constantly edge closer to death. It's such a brilliant, dark twist on the standard leveling up trope. Every single new power requires immense physical trauma. And doing this over and over takes a massive toll on him. This all culminates in a terrifying battle against a level 9 psychological demon wearing a kimono. This monster exploits the deep, dark traumas of Maru's teammates, bringing them totally to their knees. To fight back, Maru is forced to confront his own repressed childhood memory, and a single word echoes in his mind: eat. He remembers his father dragging him into the woods as a child and literally throwing him to a beast just so he could steal its unique ability. Now, this is a massive turning point. Surviving this psychological torture awakens something terrifying deeply buried inside Maru. Beaten to a total pulp, his broken body suddenly begins to unconsciously produce its own yellow dust, violently snapping his bones back into place. Up until this very moment, creating yellow dust was a biological trait exclusively reserved for the monsters. The line between human and demon, it is now officially blurred. Act 4. Worse than demons. As Maru grapples with his own terrifying nature, his team gets dragged into a brutal territorial brawl with the Gaiyang Mountain Team. Now, this is a squad of high-level human ability users, but they operate like total sadistic psychopaths. They beat down Maru's teammates just for fun, completely ignoring the looming monster apocalypse. It's a really horrifying realization for Maru about human cruelty. He learns that sometimes the people fighting the monsters are far worse than the monsters themselves. During this brawl, the psychopathic leader of the Gaiyang team, who is a level 9 gravity user, pins Maru and his friends to the ground. He's slowly crushing them just to see how much pain they can take. As Maru's ribs actually begin snapping under this intense gravity, it forces him to rely entirely on his latent, monster-like yellow dust just to survive the agonizing pressure. He is pushed further and further away from humanity just to survive other humans. Act 5. The tragic climax and a monstrous evolution. Which brings us to a devastating boiling point where Maru is pushed way past the point of no return. Maru and his sweet teammate Wu are out on patrol when they accidentally trigger this relentlessly adapting evolution demon. Just listen to how rapidly this thing escalates. Maru easily kills it at level 1, right? But by minute 5, a harder level 2 shell emerges from the corpse. By minute 15, it forms a level 6 cocoon that actually adapts to all of their attacks. And within half an hour, it sheds its shell to become a perfect, utterly terrifying level 10 threat. Maru desperately throws himself at the beast. He's trying to stall it and absorb its evolution trait before it reaches its final form. But he fails. The monster effortlessly swats Maru away and targets Wu. Despite Wu's frantic attempts to use his venom, the beast just obliterates him. Maru is left helplessly holding his friend's lifeless body. It's the very first tragic casualty of his team, and it hits incredibly hard. Absolutely overcome with grief and this blinding rage, Maru makes a fatal choice. Kang arrives on the scene and begs him to wait for backup, but Maru refuses. He stares down the monster and utters this chilling phrase: "I don't care even if I die." He then takes a sharp stake and violently impales his own heart. By inflicting a fatal wound on himself, he forcibly triggers the evolution ability he had barely managed to bite off the monster just moments before.
This moment perfectly illustrates Maru's tragic, complete character arc. I mean, think about it. He started out as this anxious, weak guy who was deeply terrified of pain and death. But as he resurrects from his own fatal wound, all emotion just vanishes. He becomes a cold, emotionless, overpowered brawler. He charges that level 10 threat and literally rips its arm off with his bare hands, fighting with pure, savage brutality. As Amaru unleashes his psycho-evolution to tear apart the level 10 demon, the yellow dust swirling all around him, that line between protagonist and villain is completely erased. Which leaves us with one final chilling question. What happens when the hero humanity relies on becomes the exact monster they're trying to survive? Is Maruhan actually saving the world, or is he just leveling up to become its final boss? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly recommend diving into the source material to see how this all plays out.
Okay, picture this. You wake up, rub your eyes, and the very first thing you realize is that you are on a one-way train to an absolute, unmitigated disaster. Welcome to our latest explainer. Today we're breaking down an incredible story of survival, betrayal, and some wildly overpowered characters. We are diving into a super high-stakes premise. What exactly happens when you wake up in a completely doomed timeline, and every single move you make to try and fix it somehow makes it exponentially worse? So our main guy, just a normal, modern dude, wakes up to a terrifying reality. His soul has been transmigrated, basically reborn, into the body of Moon Campbell. Now, in the original story, Moon is this absolute trash-tier, blonde, aristocratic villain who is destined for exile, poverty, and a seriously agonizing bad ending. And to make matters worse, he's stuck in this matriarchal fantasy world where the magic system is absolutely broken and every single overpowered protagonist is a terrifyingly strong female lead who has a very, very good reason to want him dead.
Now, Moon is no dummy. He decides to use his modern world logic to avoid this brutal fate. He vows to just keep his head down, be perfectly polite, and stay completely out of the way so he doesn't get exiled, tortured, and totally forgotten by Chapter 20. But here's the kicker. By trying to just act like a decent, normal guy, he accidentally triggers a much more terrifying reality. He completely draws the obsessive attention of the very women he was trying to avoid.
Just to put into perspective how completely doomed he is, let's look at the hostile environment he is trapped in. He is so wildly outmatched. First, you have Ariel. She's the true protagonist of the world with god-tier potential and elemental spirits. Then there's Celia, the ice princess whose magic is just instantly lethal. And finally, we have Anne. She is the seemingly sweet, submissive headmaid of his estate. Her threat level, a giant question mark at the start. Moon is basically a Tier 1 fighter stuck in a house full of absolute powerhouses.
What luckily Moon isn't entirely without a cheat code. He discovers this chaotic magical artifact known as the Dark Book. It's supposed to grant him infinite combat skills through these dream simulations. But of course, in true cursed fashion, it physically attacks him when he activates it, literally smacks him right in the face. But more importantly, the second his blood touches it, the book gives him a horrifying glimpse into a future where he is chained up, isolated, and tortured by a mysterious woman.
So, armed with that lovely little vision, Moon realizes that just being a quote-unquote good guy is what leads to that chained-up future. To avoid that, he crafts this desperate, super convoluted plan for an upcoming royal banquet to get himself safely exiled, which suddenly sounds like a best-case scenario, right? His survival plan goes like this. Sneak into the black market, buy a high-end, colorless sleeping potion, spike the Ice Princess Celia's tea, fake a mild attack on her, and look suspicious enough that his family just kicks him out without actually harming anyone.
But hey, as any gamer knows, no plan survives first contact. The black market dealer actually hands him 2 potions, and during the banquet, Moon totally fumbles. He accidentally serves the deadly Ice Princess a ridiculously potent aphrodisiac instead of the sleeping potion. This comedic disaster completely derails the entire plan.
Let's break down the timeline of that night because it escalates into pure chaos so fast. At 0 minutes, Celia drinks the tea. By minute 30, the aphrodisiac hits and she pins a terrified Moon to the floor with her freezing magic. It turns into a very awkward romantic misunderstanding. But at 45 minutes, a rogue maid assassin crashes right through the door, throws down a high-level barrier, and launches a brutal assassination attempt against the princess. And then at 50 minutes, running on pure panic and instinct, Moon dives in front of a blade, tanking a fatal blow to the chest to save Celia.
Okay, so this brings up a massive plot twist. Moon didn't hire those assassins. They were actually highly trained followers of an ancient dark god. So who secretly orchestrated this entire attack inside the highly secured Campbell estate? Well, the answer is hiding right in plain sight. It was Anne, the seemingly sweet, quiet headmaid. She deliberately manipulated the estate staff schedule and leaked the information to let the assassins inside.
So Moon is lying there bleeding out on the floor, apologizing to Celia, totally accepting that he's gonna die, but Celia, who is bloodied and furious, absolutely refuses to let him off the hook. She declares he's gonna live and pay for every single thing. Because Moon heroically sacrificed himself, he inadvertently proved his loyalty, which permanently alters the game's timeline. He doesn't get exiled. Instead, he gets pardoned by the king and hailed as a hero.
And you'd think things might calm down after that, right? Nope. The pressure on Moon only gets worse. His overpowered father, the Lionheart King, a guy who has literally never lost a single battle, has to leave for the warfront. And right before he leaves, he gives Moon a terrifying ultimatum. Because Moon is now considered a true man of the family, his father demands that he must produce an heir within 3 years. And his chosen partner for Moon? Anne, the head maid.
I mean, staggering, right? Moon knows Anne is incredibly dangerous, and he knows he is vastly underpowered. So what does he do? He dives straight into his Dark Book's dream simulations to train. 185. That is the staggering number of times Moon brutally, painfully dies inside his magical book's dream dungeon in a single night. He just faces off against a phantom assassin, dying over and over again just to scrape together some basic stat level ups.
So what does enduring 185 brutal deaths actually get you in this world? Remember, Moon is desperately trying to become strong enough to just survive the absolute powerhouses living in his own house. Well, his dagger combat reaches a measly level 2. His shadow step is barely sitting at 11%. But his mental resilience absolutely maxed out. He is learning exactly how to endure impossible amounts of pain and fear.
Riding high on a tiny bit of confidence from his training, Moon attempts to de-escalate the situation with Anne in the real world. He tells her they can just ignore his father's ultimatum. He actually gives her his blessing to leave the estate, find a good guy, and chase her own happiness. It's a super polite rejection, and Moon totally thinks he just pulled off the perfect, respectful move. Actually, scratch that. It's a fatal mistake. He completely underestimates her true nature.
Because see, Anne doesn't want freedom. She wants him. When she brings him his evening tea, it is heavily drugged. As Moon's vision starts to blur and he collapses to the floor, Anne gently holds him and she whispers, "You need to be purified with my love. We are going to be together forever until the world ends." It is a chilling, terrifyingly toxic declaration of unhinged, obsessive devotion as she knocks him out completely cold.
And just like that, boom, our explainer shifts from a fantasy political drama straight into a suffocating psychological survival thriller. Moon wakes up with his hands and feet bound in magical steel cuffs, chained to a board. He's locked in a secret, magically sealed steel dungeon, hidden deep inside an abandoned wing of his own mansion. His obsessively devoted maid has completely captured him, and he is totally, completely helpless.
But wait, because here is honestly the darkest twist of this entire story, the absolute depth of Anne's obsession. Anne wasn't just some bystander in the original timeline. She was the mastermind. She actively manipulated events, poisoned relationships, and ruined Moon's life in the original story just so he would be exiled, abandoned, and isolated. Also, she could make him entirely hers to fix. She's been pulling the strings since he was literally 8 years old.
Now, you might be wondering, why doesn't Moon just fight his way out? Well, Anne's horrifying power level makes it completely impossible. When Moon casually requests a specific, rare, bony fish from the faraway lake board just to buy himself some time, Anne doesn't just go fishing. She intercepts a legendary Monarch-class lightning beast that an entire guild of veteran adventurers is currently struggling to fight. Anne casually obliterates this legendary monster with liquid metal magic, stealing all the guild's glory, just so she can peacefully catch Moon his favorite dinner. She is terrifyingly, absurdly overpowered. But Moon Campbell, he refuses to give up. He uses the Dark Book simulation to practice the impossible, breaking magical restraints. The great fishbone escape turns into a massive ticking clock sequence. Step 1, request that specific bony fish.
Step 2, while he's eating, he secretly hoards 4 rare, sturdy fish bones. Step 3, he has to blindly pick a complex 12-pin magical steel lock, relying on sheer muscle memory from his dream simulations, knowing full well that if a bone snaps in the lock, he's a dead man. Step 4, break free and sneak into the abandoned mansion wing before she comes back.
He is breaking bone after bone. He's down to his very last attempt. The tension is absolutely suffocating. But then, the lock finally clicks. The magical cuffs release. Moon breaks free, stumbles off the board, and blindly runs into the dark, dusty corridors of the abandoned mansion wing, just desperately trying to put as much distance between himself and his captor as humanly possible.
So he grinded through 185 painful virtual deaths and literally picked a magical lock using leftover fish bones. Did Moon Campbell finally outsmart his tragic destiny? I mean, surely he's earned his freedom by now, right?
As Moon is catching his breath in the dark, finally thinking he's safe, clang! A knife slams into the wall, literal inches from his head. And from the terrifying shadows of that dusty corridor, Anne's calm, chilling voice echoes out, "I finally found you." And guys, that is exactly where this timeline leaves us. Will Moon's Tier 2 dagger skills actually save him, or is he destined to be locked in that dungeon forever? What an incredible, high-stakes story. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one as we continue to break down these amazing narratives.
Welcome back. Today, we're diving into an absolutely wild cinematic explainer. Imagine waking up one morning, but not in your own bed. You open your eyes, look in the mirror, and realize you've been transmigrated into the body of Moon Campbell. Now, if you know the story, that name should literally send a shiver down your spine. Moon is the cliché, trashy blonde villain in a world where every single major hero is an absurdly overpowered woman. We're going to map out his entire journey, chronologically, to see exactly how he attempts to navigate a world that is fundamentally designed to crush him.
So, I gotta ask, what would you do? Moon realizes almost immediately that he's stuck inside a story he used to read, and in the original timeline, his whole purpose is just to be a pathetic stepping stone. He's supposed to annoy the main protagonist, who is a phenomenally strong woman, by the way, who then levels up, ruins his family, and leaves him completely exiled. He's literally supposed to end up wandering as a forgotten beggar within the first 20 chapters. It is a brutal destiny. But our guy is a modern thinker, he's got the meta-knowledge of the plot, and he decides absolutely no way is he letting that happen.
This brilliantly illustrates his core motivation. Originally, his fate was to be ruined and forgotten. His new goal? He just wants to change the timeline, survive, and live a comfortable, wealthy life as a noble. Sounds simple enough, right? He figures he can outsmart the narrative just by avoiding the main protagonist, not acting like a total jerk, and keeping his head down. But as we're about to see, the universe, or rather the overpowered women running it, has a completely different plan for him.
All right, let's jump straight into the first major hurdle, surviving the Ice Princess. So, before our guy even woke up in this body, the original Moon had already bought a black market potion to drug the Ice Princess Celia. Yikes. At a grand banquet, Moon tries to do some desperate damage control, but there's a total mix-up with the tea. Instead of avoiding the plot, he accidentally triggers a chaotic confrontation. He tries to stage a fake crime scene to take the blame gently, but Celia wakes up from the potion way too early. She unleashes a massive blast of freezing magic, pins him to the floor, and shoves a sword right in his face. When he desperately claims he did it out of real love just to save his own skin, she calls him disgusting and dirty for calling those sincere actions. She is practically ready to kill him right then and there.
But just as Celia is about to end his life, the timeline completely shatters. The room is suddenly ambushed by a deadly maid assassin using explosive magic and dark god powers. It's an absolutely brutal, high-speed clash. The assassin drops Celia to her knees with this devastating kick to the ribs and lunges in for the finishing blow. It's a guaranteed kill. But Moon, in a split-second decision to rewrite his fate and prove he's not the trashy villain everyone assumes he is, leaps directly into the blade's path. He tanks the hit head-on, no blocking, just pure, crazy courage, acting as a human shield.
The aftermath of that crazy sacrifice comes down to the number 3. That's 3 whole days Moon spends completely unconscious, teetering on the edge of death after losing a massive amount of blood. But you know what? His insane gamble pays off in a huge way. Princess Celia actually uses her own magic to keep him alive, and fully pardons him. Even better, his incredibly powerful father, the Lionheart King, finally looks at him with actual respect, praising him for having the courage of a true knight.
Which brings us to his next big break, Unlocking the Dark Book.
Okay, so Moon survived his first lethal encounter, but he realizes he is pathetically weak compared to the monsters and mages running around this world. Enter the Dark Book. In any other story, this would be your standard ultimate cheat item. It records the combat skills of enemies he encounters and lets him learn them. Awesome, right? Well, there's a horrifying catch. To actually gain proficiency, the book pulls his consciousness into a simulated space where he has to fight spectral versions of his attackers. And in these illusions, the pain of dying is 100% realistic. He literally has to suffer excruciating, fatal wounds over and over and over just to grind his experience points.
His starting stats are frankly a joke. After getting brutally slaughtered in his first simulation, he's sitting at 1% for dagger combat and a measly 0.5% for shadow step. It is exactly like being a level 1 player who accidentally wandered right into an endgame boss zone. Every single time he spawns into the book's illusion, he's instantly killed in less than a second.
But you really have to marvel at Moon's sheer mental resilience here. I mean, most people would just break. Not Moon. He goes back in 185 times in a single night. 185 brutal, agonizing deaths, just to reach a point where he can survive for a mere 30 seconds against that phantom assassin. He wakes up physically exhausted, literally coughing up blood, but his dagger technique reaches level 2. It gives him this tiny spark of hope, making him think he's finally found his path to power.
And that's exactly when everything goes sideways. Let's talk about the maid's twisted trap. Just as Moon starts feeling optimistic, the story takes a massive, really dark turn. Meet Anne. Up until now, Anne seemed like his devoted, super sweet headmaid. She was always there, cleaning up his messes, bringing him tea, the works. But it turns out, Anne harbors a completely unhinged 10-year obsession with him. While Moon thought he was playing 4D chess avoiding the main heroes, Anne was doing some plotting of her own. She drugs his coffee, completely paralyzing him, and drops this terrifying bombshell. She's been waiting 10 years, and now his body, his soul, every drop of blood belongs to her. She thinks his recent change in behavior means he needs to be purified, and she takes total control of his life. Moon wakes up in a literal nightmare. Anne's twisted dungeon setup is flawless. He is chained up with magical steel cuffs. The room itself has a core made of reinforced tower steel that's been completely magically enhanced. If he even tries to pull on the heavy door, excruciating magical pain drops him straight to the floor. There is supposedly zero chance of a manual escape. He's entirely at the mercy of this yandere maid who now completely dictates when he eats, sleeps, and breathes.
So, just how outmatched is he? Let's look at the OP Monster Hunter. You might be wondering, why doesn't he just, fight his way out? Well, the power gap is absolutely insurmountable. Think about it. While Moon is struggling, literally dying hundreds of times just to survive 30 seconds in a fake dagger fight, Anne is out there manipulating liquid metal, casting high-tier binding magic instantly, and forging swords out of thin air to annihilate giant monsters. She is legitimately on par with the absolute strongest entities in this entire world. To really prove this, the story takes us out to Lake Bipor. There's this veteran, highly skilled adventuring party getting absolutely wiped out by a monarch-level giant shark beast. Lightning is tearing from the sky, the party is literally saying their final prayers. And then, Anne just casually floats in. Walking on air, she casts a single binding spell that totally cancels the beast's ultimate attack. With one clean slash, she executes this legendary lake master like she's just taking out the trash. The veteran adventurers are left completely speechless. And the craziest part? Why did she slaughter this legendary beast? Because it was interrupting her fishing trip. She coldly states the monster had to die for scaring away the specific edible fish she traveled all that way to catch. She killed a monarch-level beast solely because she wanted to cook a nice dinner for Moon, who is locked up back in her dungeon. It perfectly highlights how terrifyingly strong and singularly focused this woman is.
All right, moving on to the climax. A desperate, doomed escape. Since fighting her is clearly completely off the table, Moon enacts a desperate, incredibly risky plan to break free. He realizes he's got to use his brain, not his brawn. So he plays right into her obsession. He acts compliant and casually mentions he really misses eating a very specific, bony fish from Lake Bipor. Anne, being desperate to please her captive pet, travels across the country to get it, which, by the way, is exactly what led to that monster-slaying trip we just talked about. When she finally feeds the fish to him, he secretly hides the sharp bones.
Thanks to all those grueling simulations in the Dark Book, he'd actually studied a scenario called the Space of 1,000 Locks. His plan? He's going to use his leftover dinner bones as makeshift lockpicks. But the odds here are just staggeringly against him. He needs exactly 12 perfect, precise strikes to lift the lockpins inside that magically sealed door. And here's where the tension gets agonizing. He only managed to hide 4 fish bones. If he applies even a little too much pressure, the bone snaps. If she finds a broken piece in the lock, he's dead. He has to perfectly manipulate this impossibly complex lock with fragile little bones while she is literally downstairs in the mansion cooking. He starts picking. The first bone? Snap. The second? Snap. He's sweating, running out of time, and down to his last resource. He carefully aligns the final pins, holding his breath. And against all conceivable odds, the heavy steel door clicks open. He stumbles out of his reinforced prison and into a dark, dusty, ruined wing of the mansion. He's actually done it. He's out.
Or so he thinks. As he's hiding in the darkness, catching his breath and preparing to cast a light spell to find his way out, we really have to ask ourselves, did he actually outsmart a mastermind? Anne has been meticulously controlling his life, his food, and his entire environment for a decade. Is escape ever really that easy when you're dealing with someone who can slay a monarch beast without even breaking a sweat? The answer comes immediately. Just as Moon thinks he's finally gained enough distance, a terrifying sound echoes through the ruined hallway. Clang! A hunting knife slams into the wall mere inches from his head. From the pitch-black shadows, Anne's calm, chilling voice rings out. I finally found you. She was hunting him the exact second he stepped out of that room. And that brings us to the ultimate cliffhanger. Moon is exhausted, armed with absolutely nothing, standing in the dark with a god-tier yandere assassin blocking his only way out. He tried so hard to rewrite his destiny. He survived the Ice Princess, he endured 185 simulated deaths, and he managed to pick an impossible lock. But with Anne waiting right there in the shadows, is this truly game over for Moon Campbell? What do you think his next move could possibly be? I'll leave you to ponder that one. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes peeled for the next one.